What's up, everybody? For you that don't know me, my name is Chris, aka Mr. Gut, and today I'm at NJBIZ Con. I ran into Dan from the Green Sunshine Company, and I figured I'd sit down and ask him a few LED questions, so hope you guys enjoy it. All right, I have Dan here, and we are sitting down here for a few minutes. I actually have a couple questions here, cheat sheet, and I'm just gonna fire off the questions.
All right, let's get started.
So let's first talk about HPS versus LED. So here we are in 2019. You hear a lot more and more people transitioning to LED. Are HPS still relevant here in 2019? And what are your overall thoughts, HPS versus LED?
I think so. If you're talking about a double-ended fixture, those are still really good. If you're looking at the single-ended fixtures, I would say growers don't have much of a reason to use those, but if you have a double-ended fixture, those are pretty much neck and neck as far as opinion goes and as far as efficiency and yield. However, if you're building a new facility and you're a commercial grower, the double-ended fixtures, it's a toss-up, because if you're going with double-ended, you have to buy all this extra air conditioning, so you have to set up your whole facility and buy all this additional stuff to support those double-ended fixtures. Whereas with LED, you don't have to have as many startup costs in other areas and ongoing costs. Additionally, what people may not think about is with LED, you're able to put the light exactly where you want, so you can get stacks and stacks of growing space, whereas with HPS, you're limited to one level. So as far as commercial goes, I say it's kind of a toss-up. For home growers, I would say that LED is more and more relevant because they don't have to deal with as much heat. They can just have a small fan in their grow tent and get a ton of light, rather than having to get like a 1,000-watt bulb in a grow tent. That's a lot of heat. Whereas almost with all LEDs, you can get away with like 600 watts and get the same amount of output.
So I hear a lot of companies talking about top bin diodes. Right? So,
definitely.
I think a lot of people these days don't even know what those are.
Yeah.
Can you tell them? Can you tell us a little bit about what the bidding process is?
Sure.
And should consumers actually care about top bin diodes or not?
Yeah. So what top bin means? It's like, let's say you've got a class of students, and you've got a bell curve, right? You've got your F students, your A students, and your C students. It's just like LEDs. When they make LEDs, they're just chips that come out along the spectrum. So normally, they're pretty good. Usually the difference between the A students and the F students in the LED world is about 10%, right? So F to A. And if you just get the whole bin, as they call it, you're getting in the middle, which is really good efficiency. And the top bin, usually it's the top quarter, so you're getting a slice of that. And some LEDs, the difference between the whole bin and the top bin can be as low as like 3%, sometimes up to 6%. So that's a pretty small difference. And actually, how the LEDs are actually placed on the board and what power they're driven at can actually have a bigger difference. So as far as top bin, if you're a super nerd and you really know your chip style, top bin may matter for you, but really you can accomplish the exact same efficiency by doubling up the LEDs. And on top of that, a lot of manufacturers just say top bin just because it's a buzzword. So really, if you want to evaluate a fixture, you should be looking at the output, which you can get from a PPFD chart, the spectrum, and then also the distribution. So the distribution means, is it a fixture like this that's going to be hot spot in the middle? Is it distributed? Does it have lenses on it to keep the light where you want it, or is it just bare and letting the light go all over the place? So those three things, the distribution, output, and spectrum, are the things that you should be looking at rather than top bin.
So your grow light, the Electric Sky, you have an ES 180 model, and then Electric Sky 300 model. Both of them have IR in it.
That's right.
What's the benefits of having IR in a grow light? And should consumers actually care about IR or not? Some people say that IR does nothing. Other people say that it is beneficial. So is it really beneficial or not?
Yeah, it is. The people that think that IR does nothing, they have a good reason to think that, because the PAR graph, the McCree PAR graph, which is from the 1970s, you got this nice graph of basically blue to red, and it drops off in the infrared range. So, and that graph is photosynthetically active radiation. So if you read it, it says these are the colors that are active for photosynthesis. What people don't know is that graph was made in the 1970s using films and prisms. And what they did is they tested a plant one color at a time. So they gave it one shade of blue, one shade of green, one shade of yellow, one shade of red, and then infrared. And when you give the plant infrared on its own, it does absolutely nothing. But when you give the plant infrared in conjunction with another color, it has a greater effect. It's called the Emerson effect. So it's debatable whether how big of an increase there is, but inside the plant, if you want to get really technical, there's two photosystems, and I like to call them the engine and the supercharger. So the engine is what's activated by the power graph. So that's up through infrared. And in a car, if you turn on the engine, it runs and it feeds the supercharger. But if you turn on the supercharger on its own, your car isn't going to do anything. But if you turn on the engine and you activate the supercharger, it's going to get you the extra growth. So the supercharger is like the infrared, that's photosystem number 1, and the engine is like the power range, which is photosystem number 2. So they work in conjunction. So that being said, infrared is only valuable when it's given with other colors to the plant. And it is photosynthetically active. And you'll start to see much more of that in the future, I think. Apogee Instruments now just came out with a power meter that measures infrared, which is really cool, and they're doing a lot of research with that. Right now, what we know about infrared is it does grow plants in a bigger fashion. It helps leaves in many species grow larger, so they're able to capture more light. It has been shown to initiate flower production earlier. It can finish faster, so it can speed up your entire cycle from beginning to end. So you don't need infrared to have a great grow light, but it does have a lot of benefits, and it is photosynthetically active and it's not wasted. So if you have a grow light with a lot of infrared in it, as long as it's below maybe 10%, 5%, that's a great range. It's not wasted light. It does have a benefit.
So same thing with UV. Some fixtures include UV, some don't. Some people say it's not beneficial, some people say it is.
Yep.
What's the deal with that UV lighting?
UV, it is beneficial. What studies have shown is that if you give a plant UV in the beginning, it eventually develops a tolerance to it where it becomes not photosynthetically active. So it'll build up a tolerance to that over time as a defense mechanism, like the outdoors. And it can increase resin production in the plant. However, you don't need it to get good resin production. You can get that with blue light. Blue light, anything closer to blue or UV is stressful to the plants. You can achieve almost the exact same thing with blue light. So UV diodes in a grow light actually burn out faster than other ones. So if you have a grow light with UV in it, great. If you don't, I wouldn't say it's much better than one that does have it. You might get a little extra sparkle, but you can achieve really great results just with the blue spike in most LEDs.
Talking about blue light, one of the things I know about blue light is that it impacts the cell's development. So
right.
Plants tend to be more squat, shorter internodes.
Right.
What do you know about that? Can you talk to us about that?
Sure, yeah. So there's a big debate about what percentage of blue light you want to use in the plant in a spectrum. And a key thing to note when you're looking at a spectrum, it's nearly impossible to understand what percentage of each color is in the spectrum. So a key thing to know is you look at the spectrum kind of like a frame. So if you have like a family portrait and you got your whole family here, and all of a sudden a tall guy gets in the frame, you have to back off that frame. And a lot of time that tall guy is like that blue spike. So if that blue spike is really tall, it's like way up here and the rest is down here. It doesn't mean there's a small amount of those other colors. It just means there's a single color that got so high that we need to zoom out. So if you're looking at those spectrum charts, like I even get confused, but you have to think, what's the total area of the blue, green, and red? That's what you should be looking for in the spectrum. If you have a spike that's really skinny, that doesn't constitute a lot. So when you look at a spectrum graph, and you actually can get the data of how much blue light there is, between 15 and 20% is good. You can go as low as 10 and still get really good results. Above that, it isn't as photosynthetically active, and you could be using those colors for red. And too much blue light, as you mentioned, will actually stunt the plant's growth, so it inhibits cell division. But if you don't have any, like HPS, that's the reason why it grows so stretchy, is there's not enough blue light to kind of keep it a little more compact. And then so basically, depending on your preference of how you like your veg plants to grow, so a lot of veg spectrums have a lot of blue light, which keeps the plants really small. I think that's good if you want to keep them small. I prefer like a more aggressive vegetative spectrum where they're actually growing bigger, because all those nodes are you're going to be cutting off anyways in flower. So it depends on your preference of how you like to grow and how much blue light you want.
All right, now let's talk about cheap LEDs versus more expensive LEDs. You can go on Amazon, you can buy a cheap LED for like 70, 80 bucks, or you can buy something for the same footprint, $150, $200.
Right.
What are some of the differences between cheap LEDs and more expensive LEDs?
Big difference is efficiency. So I think you know of a lot of the purple LEDs out there. Many of them can be half as efficient as the better LEDs out there. So basically that means 50 watts of expensive LED is going to be the same as 100 watts of the cheap LED. So there's that. And also now LEDs are getting better and better, so that the cheaper LEDs are catching up with the more expensive LEDs. And now what I really think about is, what kind of company do you want to deal with long term? Because this purchase should be something that you buy your LED and it's good for 5-10 years down the road. So that's the type of purchase you should be thinking about, if you're buying an LED. If you want to get a cheap LED just for a couple of years and just have a plan for it, like, hey, I'm going to use this as a veg light or something like that. But I would say if you really want to be a grower, make the good investment, and it's the heart of your garden, so it should be something that really stands the test of time. If you really want to get a cheap LED to start, I actually probably recommend just an HPS bulb, because those are actually more efficient. You'll get better results than LED. I know it's counterintuitive, but you can get better results with just like a 250 watt HPS bulb rather than maybe like a Viper Spectra online. And then when you have enough saved up, get a better LED.
So tell us, what are some of the common misconceptions you hear about LED grow lights?
Sure. A few of the things that we heard in the very beginning, maybe like 2 years ago, is that LED, it doesn't work, it can't make big buds, you can't get great yields. And now I think the perception has really changed, so that now you can get great quality from LEDs. And actually what we're seeing now is the quality can be even greater than, for example, HPS. So the end result is better, and the end yield can be better. Another conception I hear is that LEDs don't create heat. So some people are surprised that they have to actually deal with heat with an LED. 300 watts of LED is going to produce about the same amount of heat as a 300 watt HPS. The HPS is going to be heating up your plants, but in the environment, they're going to be creating the exact same amount of heat. So those would be the two misconceptions, I think.
So what advice do you have for new growers that are maybe buying their first LED or about to purchase their first LED grow light?
Sure. I would say, okay, whatever LED you have, congratulations on getting an LED grow light, first of all. Second is, you got to get your environment right. So a lot of the knowledge out there is based for HID bulbs. And HID bulbs, they output infrared light, and it's infrared light much higher wavelength than the infrared light we were talking about before. It's actually like a heat lamp that heats up your plants. So they recommend 78 degrees. For good LED results, you want high humidity, so in the 50 to 60 humidity range, and higher temps, so 80 up to 84. Some people can go up to 86. As long as your humidity is high, you can go up to 86. And those are the types of temperatures you need to get that good transpiration and heat growing in the plant, so your plants actually grow fast. So first is get your environment checked out. VPD chart, pull out your VPD chart, try to get as close to that as possible. If you can't, you're most likely going to want to get a humidifier, or basically get a good fan system that can keep your temperature at 82 degrees. So that'd be the first thing, is get your environment in check. And the second thing I would say is, don't be afraid to put your LED pretty far away, especially if it's a if you have a 600 watt fixture that you can't dim down, I actually prefer running the LED at a higher power further away. And the reason for that is if you start at too low power, you have a dimmer on your light and you keep it close, the plant won't be used to a bright light source, and it takes forever for it to understand, okay, I need to make new leaves to get used to this like new brighter sun. Whereas if you back off the light, it softens it up, and there's something about it still gets used to that really bright light, and then letting your plants grow up to it. So if you do those two things, you get your environment right and you keep your light far enough away, you're gonna have a good first grow with an LED and plenty of airflow.
So where can people find you?
You can find me, Dan, at thegreensunshineco.com. You can sign up to our email list. We're on YouTube and Instagram. Instagram, we're publishing out usually daily content, so come check us out.
Cool. Any final words?
It was great talking with you.
Cool. Yeah, really great talking with you as well. Thanks for your time.